And we are live. Welcome to the Political Orphans. My name is Nico and I am your in-house conservative. To my left, Rob Ambrose, our token liberal. Our goal is simple. We want to show you that it's possible for a lefty and a righty to not only get along, but to be able to have a civil conversation when we disagree. Because never forget, common sense has no political affiliations. What's going on, bro?
What's going on, brother? How's you hanging today?
Good, man. Good. Ready for this?
Guys, yeah.
We have John Carpay on the show. He's backstage right now. He had to go get something, but he's going to be on in a couple of minutes, I'm hoping, maybe a minute or so. So I will do a small intro just to make sure we're on the same page. So today we are joined by John Carpay. He's a Canadian constitutional lawyer and the president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. And today, with his help, we're going to do a deep dive into Bill C-2. On Thursday, this is brand new, fresh off the press. I got confirmation this morning. We are going to be joined. So Thursday, June 19th, in a couple of days, we're going to be joined by journalist and reporter Mark Nixon. If you follow any type of conservative politics in Canada, you know who that guy is. He's absolutely everywhere, but he's gonna join us on Thursday to do a G7 summit recap. So make sure to join us. And here we are, John. What's going on, John?
Hey, John.
Hey, gorgeous weather in Calgary this morning. Nice summer day.
Yeah, it's nice here out here on the East Coast as well. What's it like there in Quebec, Nico?
I was just outside smoking a cigar, editing content about 30 minutes ago. So yeah,
so
it's great here too. It's a beautiful day to do what we do.
All across coast to coast.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. So yeah. John, I know that you are giving us an hour and a half of your time. So we're going to try to be extremely concise with it. So if you don't mind, we'll jump right into it. If you're ready, let us know if you're ready, and we're starting to grill you right off the bat.
Should we give John a second just to explain what the Justice Center is all about?
If you want, you gave us a great spiel last time. I did the edit afterwards. It was great. So if you want to do it again, more than welcome to do so.
I'm so honored to be on your show. My name is John Carpay. I'm president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. I earned my law degree at the University of Calgary. Et avant ça, un bac en sciences politiques à l'Université Laval. And before that, I got a poli-sci degree from Laval University back in the 80s. Cool. And we're a nonprofit. We've got a team of 10 full-time lawyers all across Canada and 4 paralegals. And we also have an excellent communications team to fight in the court of public opinion. And our mission is to defend the free society and to defend the charter rights and freedoms of Canadians. And the rest, I'll stop there. You can go to our website, www.jccf, Justice Center Constitutional Freedoms, jccf.ca. And the good news is I got through part of Bill C-2, but there's so much. I mean, it is so long, and it's a very lengthy process. Because if it says we're amending the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act and we're adding in clause 6.1, then you have to look up the Controlled Substances Act and see it and see where it goes and how it changes things, right? So it's probably a 50-hour job to go through the entire bill, and I have not yet done 50 hours. So there's a lot of the bill. It's so long. It's also bad, I think, to try to push through so much at once. You're less likely to get a good debate if you've got a bill with hundreds of provisions. It becomes very difficult for citizens to, busy lives. You're working, you've got a job, you've got family, whatever takes up your time. It's very hard for the average citizen to really be able to debate the provisions of this very long bill.
Mm-hmm. Well, in some ways, maybe perhaps that's intentional, right? Just bury you in information and just people just get exasperated. And I think that's why I think there's value in sort of what we're going to try to do here today. I just want to say I was actually quite surprised. I knew that the Justice Center was a fairly significant player, but 10 lawyers and 4 paralegals, that's quite a large organization.
We're not small, and that's thanks to the generosity of donors, because we don't ask for government funding. We don't receive government funding. So we've got about 10,000 Canadians, give us, whether it's $100 a year or $1,000 a year, and that all goes into one account. And out of that, we pay all of the lawyers to work full time. Wow.
So guys, if you are out there and you if you like what you see, if you appreciate what John does, I'm sure at some point we're going to we'll give you a chance to plug that or give us a link. We can direct people where they can donate if they. I know a few of our viewers already do, but I think we'll definitely highlight that.
I'm telling you right now, John, you might be visited by one of your guys on camera, because I'm talking to your guys in the back end. Like, I've helped them set up everything, and you're not sharing the stream right now on your X. It should be at the top of the screen, but if you're not sure, I'm just talking. I don't want to name names because I don't know if everybody's comfortable with having their names out there like I am, and like Rob isn't, like you are. But just so you know, you might have somebody from your team that's in your studio right now. Just go on your laptop and share the stream. So I'm just letting you know, don't be scared. It's all organized. That's the beauty of the lives. We do it on the go. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of sometimes those sorts of snafus happen, and it's part of the charm of being live, I think.
Julian,
it shows you we're not AI. We're not AI.
Julian. I think that's the apparently.
I was trying not to name names.
No, but John
it's not Julian's fault, so there's no embarrassment there.
No. All good.
So Julian's been informed, so we'll see what happens next.
And he's been great too.
That's who I was talking to. Yeah. I'm chatting with him by email, so I think you have somebody else in the room with you right now.
We're coordinating all kinds of stuff.
So yep. So you know what? Let's get into it, because we have quite a few questions, and hopefully you got time to do a little more research, because as you were saying, the bill is extensive. They do it 140 pages. It's absolutely insane, but they do it on purpose. Let's be honest here. They always do that. They hide stuff that should not be in there just because they know the people will not dig. And let's be honest here, the average MP is not reading 140 pages either.
No. Well, remember Pelosi? You gotta vote. You gotta vote for the bill before you can read it. Just before you do, Nico, I just want to say something to the audience, guys. If you do have any questions for John, just throw them in the message box. We will get to them at the end if we have time. John, for yourself, if you look to the bottom right, you'll see those things. So if you ever see anything that come up, feel free to address anything that you think is necessary. And at the end of it, if we have time, we'll ask some of the viewer questions.
So one of the questions, we talked about this last time. We talked about there's a specific portion, if you want to be exact, I can give you the page of the bill, but on page 14 of the bill, under officers' access to goods transportation, there's a lot of mentions of having goods that are transported within Canada that will eventually get exported into the US. So we talked about that last time we had you on, but there's a few questions that came up, and funny enough, Rob and I had the same questions. First off, on the transportation part, are they implying that this could actually apply to goods that are transported within Canada?
Yes.
Meaning that a trucker could potentially, like, I'm taking stuff from Alberta to BC because once it's in BC, I'll drop it in a warehouse and it will be exported to the US. Does that count, even when it's being transported within Canada?
Well, yes, and that's a new addition, a brand new section, which would be 97.01 added to the Customs Act. And I'll just read it. Every person who transports or causes to be transported within Canada goods destined for export must, at an officer's request, give the officer free access to any premises or place under the person's control that is attached to or forms part of any place where any goods destined for export are reported, loaded, unloaded, or stored, and open any package or container of those goods or remove any packaging from those goods. This is brand new because the Customs Act, and I did spend some time on this last night, it's very fixated on the borders and the international trade. So if you have, you know, a warehouse in Windsor or somewhere close to the border, and it's a warehouse, it's goods for export, there's already powers there for customs officials to go and inspect. And, you know, probably a good thing, maybe not, whatever. It is what it is. That's the existing law. This says every person who transports or causes to be transported within Canada goods destined for export, free access to any premises or place under the person's control. So to me, this means that if you are manufacturing electronics parts in Montreal or Moncton or Manitoba or Edmonton, and they're destined for exports because you're trying to, you're going to sell them to somebody in Vietnam or Korea or Japan, then your warehouse in your garage in Winnipeg, if it's a small business and your garage is attached to your house, they can say, well, these are goods destined for exports, so we can just walk in here. And any premises or place under the person's control that is attached to or forms part of any place where any goods destined for export are reported. So if you have these goods for export in your garage or in your basement, it can just, it's this warrantless, you know, because it's not criminal law, right? Maybe if it was criminal, if it was the police, there might be a need for a warrant. There's no need here for a warrant. So this is a step towards a police state. If a government official can say, well, you have goods that are destined for export, again, maybe a small business, and you're mailing out your birdhouse or your beautiful handcrafted bracelet or whatever, and you're mailing it to
or
the US,
a bumper sticker of your, you know, like hashtag truckers or just whatever is associated with your activism.
Every person who transports or causes to be transported within Canada goods destined for export. So again, that's if it's within Canada. So we're expanding, we're taking the state's power away from only a warehouse at the border to every garage and basement in Canada.
And so it is really, so just to make sure that we're all on the same page here, I'm just going to repeat what you just said. So basically, if I'm a trucker, for example, that is transporting goods within Canada that might eventually be exported to the US, officers without a warrant could potentially show up to my house to inspect my truck, inspect anything that's under my control, because at one point I transported goods that were headed to the US. That's one. Second,
or another country, you know, or another country. If you're shipping across Canada to Vancouver, in Vancouver they're going to ship it to Asia, you know.
But any point within that transportation steps from, let's say it's from Montreal to BC, BC goes to Asia, even if I was in Montreal, I'm from Montreal, they could literally come to my place because I leave my truck at a home at night. Basically anything that's under my control could be inspected by an officer without a warrant. That's
what it says in my opinion. And this is different, by the way, from there's provincial laws that, you know, you must get your truck inspected, but they're looking at the safety and the brakes and whatever. And again, you know, whether those laws are good or bad, or we have too much law or not enough law, that's a whole separate thing. But that's very different if it's a truck inspection for safety, but they're not going into your truck to look at your goods. And then some people say, well, hey, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. So if you,
I don't like that.
Talk about this, right? So if you're you don't have drugs or weapons or child pornography in your premises, so you're a good citizen, so you have nothing to worry about. What people forget is that human nature is a mix of good and evil. Governments are made out of people. Governments can do certain good things, provide a court system, defend our borders. There's all kinds of good things the government can do and should do. However, we must not lose sight of the fact that in the 20th century, there were more citizens murdered by their own government. I'm talking about the Soviet Union with Stalin and other dictators, Adolf Hitler, Nazi-occupied Europe, Mao Zedong's China, Pol Pot's Cambodia, and on and on and on. Governments have murdered more people in the 20th century than the number of soldiers that died in the battlefield. Wow. So this is why you got to keep these boundaries up. And it's very foolish to say, well, I don't mind a camera in my living room because I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not beating my wife or, whatever. It's like, no, if you give government that power, why would they not use it?
Yep.
Some estimates are that more than 100 million people were murdered by their government. Doesn't matter. It's Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, any dictator, Hitler in Cuba. If you look at all the dictators within the 20th century, you're looking at about 100 million people. It's insane when you start putting them together, and that's government. That's not war. That's really government going after their people. And there's another part that you addressed here that is, if you go back to where you were before, because there's really two parts to that section that really bothers me. Is that one, anybody that transports goods is now open to being investigated, for their house to be looked at just because they were part of that transporting chain, if you will. But then the other part that really bothered me, and I just want to make sure that I understood you correctly for the people out there as well, is that they're kind of redefining what the definition of warehouse is without actually giving us the definition of a warehouse within the bill, because the word warehouse is only mentioned 5 times within that paragraph.
But they don't define it. Yeah.
97.02. So is it true to say that as it stands right now, the bill is basically defining a warehouse as anywhere that it could be used to store any types of goods or services within that transporting chain, no matter if it's commercial, residential? It doesn't seem to matter who owns it as much as was it under the control of a person that transported that good at any point. Is that correct to assume that that's what the bill is implying?
It talks about any place where any goods destined for export are stored. So,
which is so vague, and you almost feel like they did it on purpose, right?
It's so broad. And open any package or container of those goods, or remove any packaging from these goods. So this is Charter Section 8 says every citizen has a right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. So, the police powers, and I support the police fighting real crimes, and that's all good, and they need tools, etc. But there has to be that balance there, that if they want to go into somebody's house or place a business, there needs to be a search warrant. And I think they're trying to, it looks to me like they want to, well, this isn't really criminal law because it's just a customs officer who's not a police officer, and he's not looking for the commission of a crime. He just wants to inspect your goods. Well, it's one thing to have goods at a point of export, but it's quite another to say that customs officials in Montreal and Winnipeg can just go into any place they want because it has goods destined for export. There's an awful lot of goods produced in Canada that are destined for exports. I mean, usually if you manufacture something, you're selling it to Canadians and Americans, right? So it is so broad. And just because they're not police investigating a crime, these are agents of the state. They should not have this easy, ready access to any place in Canada where goods destined for export are stored.
It's crazy. And I feel like, you know, as one thing that jumped out to me as I was reading this is like so much of it is vague. It's hard to imagine it's not intentional. It's much of, you know, words like good faith and reasonable intention, reasonable belief, without any hard, you know, anything hard definitions of any of these things. For example, we've got a comment here from Angry Beaver, user Angry Beaver. He says, so I send a care package to a friend in the States. They can search my house and work with no warrant, or did I hit my head too hard on the hood of my car when he said that? He goes on to give an example. I make nuts on a CNC machine, sell them to a company who is using it for exporting. I can get searched. You could very easily imagine the government who, let's say Angry Beaver here comes across our radar screen for whatever reason. He made a Twitter post that doesn't go with the narrative. Let's say he supported the truckers several years ago because he sells nuts and he makes them in his garage. That is now part of this logistical chain that they can, on reasonable suspicion, go into his house and search for whatever they want. Is that kind of how you read this?
Well, in a different part of the bill, but this might apply here as well. I'm just going to read aloud one of the comments from one of our staff lawyers. He says, rights are those pesky things that prevent cops from being able to do whatever they want in an investigation. The issue, as I see it, is what standards we have to protecting rights in the course of investigations. Generally speaking, the standard for searches is reasonable probability, also known as reasonable and probable grounds, whereas the bill permits subscriber data. This is on a different part of it with the electronic services provider, whereas the bill permits subscriber data to be obtained on reasonable suspicion, also known as reasonable grounds to suspect, which is a lower standard. So you go from searches permissible based on reasonable probability, so reasonable and probable grounds, and you lower the standard to reasonable suspicion, which is reasonable grounds to suspect. So they haven't eliminated it completely, but it's a lower standard. I also heard last night, got an email from a police officer whom I've known for about 30 years. He's retired now. And he had no problem in his job going to court and having to put forward an affidavit to support. The affidavit would explain why they needed to tap somebody's phone, because it said, you know, we have reasonable grounds to suspect this is a criminal organization, whatever. We've tried this and this and this and this and this. We want to investigate further. So now we're going to ask for this unique, specific permission to listen in on one guy on his phone calls. So they have to go before a court. And whereas in this bill, and I'm sorry, I'm jumping to a different section about the electronic subscriber data, the government gets power to say, well, turn over your entire subscriber list. That's completely different from a targeted. And by the way, I support the police that if they have reasonable grounds to think that somebody's child pornographer or violent gang or whatever, you get permission to read the emails or listen to the phone conversations of one individual who is a suspect to continue your investigation, right? So maybe his rights are violated, privacy rights, obviously they're violated, but it's one person, and the police say we need to listen to that one person. Totally different from having to turn over your subscriber data for Rogers or TELUS or Videotron or whatever. Turn over an entire subscriber list with all these names and addresses.
So I definitely want to address the electronic service providers. That's definitely something I want to touch on more details. But before we do, I just had one question regarding this bill, so we can skip to the next question. Actually, Julian is asking us to take a break so that somebody can appear on screen and kind of stream it for you.
Yep.
But before we do, the part I wanted to ask is this, I was not able to find, but I'm no lawyer, but it doesn't seem to specify what that officer, and I'm air quoting because it is the term that they're using within the bill, what does that officer actually need in order to show up to my place because I have goods in my basement, like my shirt right now. This is a shirt I designed, and yes, I will ship them to the US. So what would it take for an officer to show up to my place in my basement where I'm going to keep my shirts to say we need to inspect your
Nothing.
warehouse?
No search warrant. No search warrant.
That's not okay. Let me rephrase that. That was clear that there's no warrant. What does it need? Is it just reasonable? Is it just reasonable doubt? Is it in good faith? What's the terminology that they put in the bill as to what does that officer need to confirm?
Nothing.
That I did something wrong before they are, because I'm in trouble. Like, I can tell you right now, I'm very happy that you and I met, because one day that will happen to me. I know this. So I'm happy that we have kind of a little friendship going on here, because I know who to call. But the point is that for them to show up to my door right now to inspect my place, the fact that they don't like me, the fact that I talk against the government to my hundreds of thousands of followers every day, is that enough for an officer to just say, hey, I don't like that guy, we're going to go check what he does because he exports stuff to the US?
Well, and just to add on to your question, Nico, often the term used is designated persons. It doesn't even necessarily need to be an officer, I don't believe. John, could you clarify that?
Well, because these are inspectors, they can randomly, they don't need reasonable or probable grounds. As a small example, if you're going through airport security, they can, every 10th person or every 50th person, they say, you go through the metal scanner, and then they say, well, we're going to do an extra search, and they pat you down and they look at your computer. So if it's officers under the Customs Act, they can pick whoever they want for whatever reason they want. It's totally different from criminal law, which is, in a way, makes this much more scary, because if they want to inspect premises where goods destined for export are stored, they don't need a crime tip. It can be anything. And so, and that means also, it could be something they read on the internet and they don't like your politics. So they're not going to admit that ever, but they could say, well, we're going to, we know where this guy lives and he has T-shirts, which are goods destined for export. And we're just going to inspect. And so that's the massive privacy violation. Right. And you're probably not going to face criminal charges, and you're probably not even going to get in trouble, because when they inspect your T-shirts, they're going to see that, they're not laced with cyanide or something. They're not going to make people sick. So it's not even the point that you're going to get in trouble. It's the point that they can come into your house or your garage, in Montreal or Moncton or Manitoba, just because you've got goods destined for export.
But that can be enough for people to not want to get involved. That's the thing, because if you're a small business and they show up to my small business, they destroy one of my business days. That could put me behind days I need to play catch up. And then I'm like, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. So I'll make sure to keep my comments for myself. Because as much as they won't admit to it, we're not stupid. At the end of the day, if there's a government agent that knocks at my door, it's not because I've done something legally wrong. I'm a legal gun owner. They have all the rights in the world to not respect my rights and show up to my house to inspect all they want. So I know that if I was criminally charged, the RCMP would have knocked at my door. But if I have an inspector, custom inspector showing up to my place, it's not because I'm doing something wrong. It's because there's something behind closed doors that they won't admit to, but we all know we're not stupid. All I'm saying is that there's the door that's opened. The door is opened. Like, would that, if that bill passes as it stands right now, it is something that could be used to silence people by making it difficult for them to run a small business.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And we know from our experience with the lockdowns, the government officials who always get their paycheck is directly deposited into their account twice a month or once every 2 weeks. They, with some exceptions, they really don't understand what it means to run a business, and how an unwarranted inspection can disrupt a business. I mean, they don't get it, right? The money just comes into the account just like that. They don't have to look at the the expenses and the revenues and try to create a profit out of that. That's something that's very foreign to the vast majority of government officials. So Yeah, again, the problem I have with this is it's just such a large expansion of state power to walk into any place anywhere in Canada where goods destined for export are stored. It's so broad, as opposed to at the point of exiting the country. That's a very different power. Well, then there's not a privacy right? Because if you've got a box of T-shirts that you're shipping to the U.S., if it gets inspected at the point that it's leaving Canada, your privacy rights are not being violated. And they can go and they can open the box and make sure that there's no drugs or whatever, harmful or dangerous things. That's not really a personal privacy violation. They're just opening your box, checking it out, hopefully resealing it properly, and off it goes, right? So this is very different from inspecting goods that are exported in the narrow sense.
Yeah, and I think as Nico had said, and as you're alluding to, you probably won't often get actually criminally charged, but it seems like in many ways the process is the punishment. You see this in the UK all the time, where there's these videos coming out of 4 or 5 cops showing up at some elderly lady's home at 4 a.m. because of a tweet she made. They take her to the station, they grill her for 6 hours, and let her go. No harm, no charge. But that's the point, right? That's the punishment, is just to say, it's got to it's intended to have a chilling effect, because nobody wants it. Who wants, most people are not activists. They'll just say, okay, I'm just not going to bother. I'm not going to say, and that's exactly what they want.
I think there's somebody there with you that can fix the problem for the streaming. And
yeah,
I'll just
take a quick break.
We'll take a break.
Yeah, we'll just.
I'll get Julian on the line.
I'll put you in the backstage, and
we'll just talk to the audience for a few minutes.
Yep. We'll take some questions.
We'll get back to you in a sec, John.
Guys. So you can still hear us.
Yep. So guys, that's we still got probably another hour here with John. They're just taking 2 minutes to fix the stream on their end. So if you do have any questions, make sure to drop them in there, and we'll get to them when we can. What do you guys think so far? You guys like this kind of content, getting someone like that? Because I think it's a great asset to the show to have somebody like John and that with that kind of an organization to be here to answer these kind of questions.
Absolutely. Hey, John, I think you can still hear us. Just wave when you're ready to go, or thumbs up, thumbs down. I know there's a guy there. Not everybody wants to be in front of the camera, so it's a little
no worries.
But while John is looking at this, there's something that just popped on my feed. I was just about to reshare it on X, where breaking news: Carney promises Ukraine another $2 billion in military aid. So, talk about a smack in the face of Canadians once again.
Yeah,
something like 20%. It's depending on the estimate that you look, between 20 to 25% of Canadians are struggling with daily necessities, and
$2 billion.
Carney that's going to give $2 billion to Zelensky. And I made a video about this morning because Zelensky right now is at the G7, where he has no place being, and people are encouraging that, but people don't know that Mark Carney owns $6.8 million in options of Brookfield, the investment firm that he was the vice chair. And if you guys did not know this, Brookfield is in business with Ukraine right now. They have a $160 million project where they are the main investors, and they're in talks with something called Advantage Ukraine that will be responsible for rebuilding Ukraine. This is something that you can find online. I made a quick video about this morning. And now we have Mark Carney that is promising another $2 billion. How is this not corruption? How is this not a massive conflict of interest? Because if you remember, before he ran for PM, he put all of his assets in a blind trust. And that's where the famous quote, the famous reel came from.
Inside
look
yourself.
Within yours. Oh, so now we have our prime minister just fucking promised $2 billion to the dictator of Ukraine to help him in military aid.
I mean, it's
while
wild.
the business that he owns parts or options of $6.8 million in options is in bed with Ukraine in at least $160 million, 160 million project. Plus, they're in talks to help reconstruct their country after the war. How is that not a problem?
Yeah, it's it's pretty wild. And just as we're talking here, I'm just Googling like what is our actual military budget? Like what do we spend on our own military? And it looks like we spend about $8 billion a year. So that's 25% of our own spending just given away to Ukraine. I went to what is Veterans Affairs budget? It's about $4 billion. So that's half of what we give to Veterans Affairs. Now I'm ex-military. I served.
It's more than we can give to you right now. Do you remember that? That speech?
I have friends who were injured, who are fucked in the head because of PTSD, who are physically injured because they've got hurt, who have been denied claims because of, well, I assume budgetary issues. Meanwhile, we're giving $2 billion away to Ukraine. I don't like this. I hate this. I don't like this at all.
It blows my mind because I talked about this morning. I made a video about this before I knew about the 2 billion, sorry.
Yeah.
But people are attacking me saying, stop trying to create a false issue when you should be looking at Pierre Poilievre. I'm like, Pierre Poilievre, who cares about Pierre Poilievre? He's not my PM. I don't care about Pierre Poilievre. I don't care what he does right now because he's irrelevant.
Yeah.
But don't tell me that there's not a problem here. Don't tell me that there's not a problem with corruption here. Don't tell me that there's at least not a problem with conflict of interest. Having millions of dollars in a company that is in bed with a country that you're giving taxpayers money to. Like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? And I'm the problem for reporting it?
I mean, it's I don't like it. Just
it's working. By the way, I'm doing this because it just went live on X.
You guys are good. And I'll just very quickly before we get that back on, just to answer the question that we had asked if they like the content. Angry Beaver says yes, he needed this breakdown. He does Bloodsport debates for fun. He doesn't have 50 hours to read it. It's a great show, guys. I love it. And a $10 super chat tip. He says, I needed this. I love it. Thank you for that, sir.
We always accept the tip.
Yeah, just the tip, boys. That's how we roll here. And we'll just take this last one before we bring John back in. Wise Guy says, it gives the show more depth to have an expert like John. Also, Rob is right. This entire bill is intended to have a chilling effect on people in general. And I think that's something to keep in mind as we keep going through with John. This isn't often criminal, right? For it to be criminal, they probably have to have much more, they wouldn't be able to get away with such vagaries, such reasonable suspicions and vibes and feels and stuff. It would have to be more concrete, but they can still, fuck up your day, even though it's not criminal. So just keep that in mind as we keep going in. And I think John's ready to, whenever he sits back down, but their stream is ready. We will jump in with that. But we still got quite a decent amount of time with John, and I'm really enjoying this. I think it's really informative. Hey,
Nico, John, welcome back.
Yes,
right back.
I think we're. Yeah, it feels like you were just here. I think with that, that's probably about. Should we move on to the next question there?
There we go. Now we got somebody. I didn't want to say anything about the camera, but last time we spoke, your camera was way better. So there we have it.
There we go. There we go.
Can I say his name on camera? Thank you, Ben.
Yes. And also, guys, before we continue this, remember to like and share this stream, smash that like button, and like that smash button, whatever way you want to say it. If you do like the show, if you do like what you see, best way to support us is to, again, like, share the stream. If you're on X, if you are on YouTube, where all the action's happening, please subscribe to the channel. And if you really want to support us and the independent journalism we do here, or independent media, I guess, best way you can do it is become a member for the low price of $2.99, and you will support us in doing what we do and help build this community. And there will be a spot for John to also plug the Justice Center if you appreciate what he's doing like we do and you want to support that cause. So please stick around for that as well. John, so moving on to the next question, and I'll bring it up here as I talk so the audience knows what we're talking about. In part 4 of this, under subsection 40.13, which I'll highlight right here, it says subject. So this is under the Canada Post Corporation Act. So this is referring to the ability to seize your mail or package based on reasonable suspicion. This specific clause here says any servant or agent or mandatory of His Majesty and the corporation are not liable in any person for any claim arising from a demand, seizure, detention, or retention in accordance with this act. And this is under the heading of limited liability. So I just wanted to maybe if you could flesh that out a little bit. Is that saying, they can basically take whatever they want and they can do whatever they want to it. They can damage it. They can do whatever. And you have no claim, no ability for recourse in the event of that they damage or lose, or just even if they don't, just the fact that, they've invaded your privacy without, a warrant or whatnot. Is that sort of indemnifying these agents? And is that a standard clause in this type of legislation, or is this sort of an escalation in kind?
Well, the intention seems pretty clear. It's telling the Canada Post employees, you go ahead and do what you want, and you don't have to worry about a civil lawsuit. And of course, you could see lawsuits arising. I mean, if you've got a contract, and maybe this is not a really good example, but you've sent a money order or a certified check by mail to somebody else, maybe somebody that can't accept e-transfers, and if it gets opened and delayed, and then you miss your payment deadline, and so you violated the contract, and maybe you have to pay interest. Or it could be a personal family situation where there's a letter of apology that has to get to somebody before a certain event, before a wedding or a funeral or something, right? And you could have massive destruction and harm caused to people by delays. And of course, opening mail is delaying mail. And so the provision says, don't worry about that. Just focus on, crime fighting. And again, this moves away from the idea of a warrant. I don't know for sure if police, I don't know how it works with opening mail. I know for telephone conversations, if police want to listen in on your conversation, they have to get that search warrant, and they have to put proof before the court that there's reasonable and probable grounds that you're involved in criminal activity, and that the only way that the police can further the investigation is to tap your phone. I don't know if the same standard applies to mail, but it should, right? So if police suspect that Mark Smith in Edmonton is engaged in criminal activity, there should be some warrant in place that says, well, we can track mail sent and received by Mark Smith, right? And then you're targeting one person only. That's very different. That is legitimate crime fighting. The police go after one individual, but to have broad powers, everybody's mail can get opened. That's just terrifying. That's literally a police state. I mean, that's what the Nazis did. That's what the communists have done. And other tyrannical regimes. I mean, we have Argentina in the 1970s, 30,000 people just disappeared, many of them murdered and tortured. This is all within living memory, that you don't want to give government these huge powers.
100%. Like it's, to a man with a hammer or a government with a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? If you give it to them, they're going to use it.
One of the things that I like you're talking about warrant, I wanted to bring it up with you because, just the word warrant is mentioned 85 times in the bill. And I wanted you to tell us, are they modifying the definition of either warrant or who can obtain a warrant. Because as I was looking through this bill, they keep on talking about something called a public officer, which is mentioned another 50 times in that bill. So not only are they keep on referring to warrant, they keep on referring to something called a public officer. Are they really changing not only the definition of a warrant, but who specifically can obtain one? Because I was under the impression, and maybe that's me being naive and just being a regular Canadian, but I was under the impression that police officers or somebody that worked for the police, like any type of level of government, like RCMP, for example, regional police, they could go to a justice or to a judge to obtain a warrant. But just a public officer, as in a public servant, could not. Was I mistaken here? Are they changing who is capable of getting a warrant now? Or at least trying to, because this is just a bill right now. It hasn't been approved or anything.
I'm really sorry. I've gone through parts of it, but that I'm making a note of this. I can get back to you by email or if we have a future discussion, but I'm sorry.
No worries, John. I actually just I can.
Do you have the bill in front of you?
Yeah, I'll share it here. And you still might not be able to answer, and that's perfectly cool. I mean, I know a lot of this is brand new and it's a giant bill. I mean, I don't really see anyone else talking about this, so whatever we can do is seems to be much more than anyone else is doing. So can you
go to page 83?
I don't have pages on mine. Do you know? Do you know?
I have it here.
Okay, so just I'll ask John this question. So in part 15, under 19 subsection 19.1, and this is related to what Nico was just saying. It says it says under the heading authority to enter place, which I assume is premises or whatever. It says a designated person may, for the purpose of verifying compliance or preventing non-compliance with this act, enter any place if they have reasonable grounds to believe that anything relevant to that verification is located in that place, or that an activity regulated by this act is conducted in that place. So there's no discussion of warrant there. So I think Nico was saying, like, are they changing the definition? Because they do use it other places, but this seems to me exactly like, if you don't have the word warrant in this, like, this is what warrants were designed for, right? Officers may have reasonable suspicion or reasonable grounds all they want. They still need to go to a judge typically and show them those reasonable grounds, and then a judge will offer a warrant. Is anything about this part kind of jump out to you as concerning?
Well, if this is not qualified with the need to obtain a warrant, then it's absolutely frightening. It turns us into a police state. And again, the point is that we shouldn't have government officials being able to go anywhere, anytime, to look for anything they want. It has to be narrow and restricted. And just the violation of privacy is terrifying. Because we talked earlier about these regimes in the 20th century that collectively together they killed 100 million people. In order to do that, you first need to have a police state in place where it's very clear to citizens and the government that the citizens don't have a right to privacy. Mm-hmm. One of the first pieces of legislation passed by the National Socialists in Germany in the 1930s. Well, in fact, it was a decree during an election. It's to authorize the police to open mail. This is so important for authoritarian, totalitarian dictators to have that authority to open mail. If you don't have the authority to open mail, you're just there's so much less the government can do to you. And I think really the dividing line with this legislation and with the Online Harms Act and with so many other laws, the dividing line really comes down to whether you have this naive, childlike trust in government as some sort of a Santa Claus He will only give you presents, right? We don't have a Santa Claus that's going to give you a spanking if you've been bad, right? The worst he could do is maybe withhold gifts, right? But Santa Claus is pure good. He gives gifts. He's happy. He's friendly. There's no dark side to Santa Claus. And this is how some people, they view government. It's like anything government does, anything it wants, government is good. They have our best interest at heart. They would never lie to us. They would never deceive us. Nobody is power hungry. Nobody enjoys exercising power over another person. And yet the evidence, you see in relationships, you see abusive relationships, you see that, exercise of power by one person over another. It's part of human nature. And so when politicians and unelected government officials, when they get power, they're going to use it because they enjoy it. Because for the dark side of human nature, a power trip is a lot of fun.
Well, I think, just to add on to what you're saying, even if some hypothetical world, the government you have today is that Santa Claus one, you still need to be really concerned with these laws because you don't know what government's going to be there tomorrow. And if they have these tools at their display, and any even cursory examination of human history and the history of governments will tell you they will use this power if they have it. Before I throw this over to Nico, I just wanted to just address one comment quick because I think I really agree with Joe here. He says, my favorite thing about John and what lends him enormous credibility is the fact that he's not afraid to say, I don't know. And I just wanted to echo that. I think it's really refreshing rather than just kind of bullshit because, this is brand new. This is such a giant bill and it's intended to be confusing. And I think it's really useful and valuable to be able to say, I don't know, but I'll find that out for you. So I just want to say I appreciate that.
Thank you.
One of the reasons I was bringing that up is because of this right here. Because correct me if I'm wrong, John, maybe before I show you the bill itself, but is it safe to assume that right now that it is only somebody related to law enforcement? Doesn't matter that it's federal, provincial, or municipal that can not only exercise a warrant, but ask a justice or a judge for a warrant. Is that a safe assumption, or am I misunderstanding our criminal code here?
Well, you need a warrant to go into somebody's home and place of business for that matter,
unless it's a warehouse.
But this is what can be very insidious. It's one thing to restrain the power of the police, who are fighting crime and doing criminal investigations. When it's non-criminal, it becomes such a totally different thing. Like when you're crossing the border and the agent wants to do an extra search on you, that's not a criminal investigation and you're not likely to be charged with a crime. But what I'm saying is we have to be very leery of what non-police powers we give to government officials, because government can make your life a living hell even while never enforcing the criminal law. If you give broad powers to non-policemen, so customs officials, I mean even social workers, for example, right? They're not policemen, they're not conducting criminal investigation, but they're exercising state authority, and there have to be appropriate limits placed on what they can do to protect the privacy and the security of people, but also allow the social workers to still get their work done and protect vulnerable children, etc. There has to be the right balance there, and that's what C-2 is lacking, is that sense of balance that we recognize that if we want customs officials and social workers and all these non-police government officials, we want them to be able to do their job and to enforce the law, but there has to be the right balance with protecting the privacy rights and property rights of individuals.
The reason, and I might not be clear in my question, but the reason I'm bringing it up is that, as I said, warrant, just the word warrant itself is mentioned something like 85 times. But there's also a word, like an expression called public officer, which I had never seen before.
That's very broad.
And I didn't even understand it.
Read that
public
out
officer, Yep.
Go ahead, John.
So public officer means a public officer who is appointed or designated to administer or enforce a federal or provincial law and whose duty includes the enforcement of this act or any other act of parliament. That is scary. Yeah. Any other act of parliament and this act. And the reason I bring this up is that 84 times warrant is mentioned, but this public officer is mentioned 50 times throughout that bill. And I could not find a definition anywhere in there that stipulates what it is, similar to warehouse. But because I speak French, right here, it says fonctionnaire public, which that translation is literally a public servant. Is anybody that works for the municipal, provincial, or federal? No. Public servant.
Not even just federal, yeah.
No. Fonctionnaire public. The definition could be used to any public servant. It doesn't matter that it's municipal, provincial, or federal, which is why that public officer really scares me. Like having law enforcement being able to obtain a warrant from a judge or a justice in order, because there's a criminal investigation. I get it. I fully understand. But to start giving those powers to public officers they're not defined, just like warehouse is not defined. That is a scary thought to have somebody with purple hair that don't like that I'm a conservative, because my whole family works for the government. And let's be honest here. It's not conservative people that work for the government. Let's be very honest here. They don't like people like me at the government. So we don't work there because they don't like our politics. Let's be honest here. So is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing? Am I on crack here, John?
No.
Am I overthinking this?
Public officer. So this is a step towards Canada becoming a police state. A big step. And I have to say, unfortunately, I went to two different websites of criminal defense lawyers. There was a local Alberta Criminal Defense Lawyers Association. I don't have the name right exactly. And then there was the Criminal Lawyers Association, which has a national base. And in the past, the criminal defense lawyers were always at the forefront of protecting privacy rights and saying, wait a minute, this gives police too much power. And I appreciate the work of criminal defense lawyers today way more than 30 years ago when I was in law school. I rightly or wrongly, I kind of thought, well, you're kind of interfering with the police, catching the bad guys, and you're kind of annoying. I've changed my mind 180 degrees, because the criminal defense lawyers are protecting when they go to bat for some, let's take the worst example, some horrible guy who kidnapped a child, tortured a child, raped a child, murdered a child, the worst possible crime. When they go to bat for somebody to say, we obviously disagree with what he did, but he has a right to a fair trial. He has a right not to be interrogated. He has a right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. He has a right to remain silent, et cetera, et cetera. When they go to bat for some person who is accused of a horrible, horrible crime, they're actually going to bat for every one of us. Now, that's the way criminal defense lawyers have been. And here with C-2, these two websites, I saw nothing. Now, hopefully this is only because they're doing a thorough examination of the entire bill. And next week, they're going to come out with a comprehensive paper that goes through the whole bill. But it's amazing and amazing in a sad way that the criminal defense lawyers in Canada, to my knowledge, based on what I've seen so far, they're not speaking out against this. When this bill is a more severe assault against the rights of citizens than a lot of other stuff that they have objected to in the past.
And that's why we're doing what we're doing, because we had that discussion, and I'm like,
why is no one talking about this?
Yeah. But not only are people not talking about it, are lawyers not talking about it the way that we are right now. But this relates to the question I have for the audience today. Do you think that the Conservative Party is doing enough to fight this bill? Because I've seen a couple of people talk about it, but they're not addressing it in the way that we're addressing it, saying this is police state, people. What they're asking, the power that they're asking for, is to turn Canada into a police state. And you can argue until you're blue in the face to say, oh yeah, but this is just a bill, it hasn't been passed, blah 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 blah. But hold on here, the fact that they have the audacity to ask, just the fact that they're coming to the plate and say, you know what, those are the rights that we believe, those are the powers we believe we need in order to take care of our immigration problem that we've created in the first place, is insanity to me. And I don't hear it. I don't see people, doesn't matter that they're lawyers, as you mentioned, doesn't matter that it's a conservative party, doesn't matter that it's content creators out there. Nobody seems to be outraged by this, and it blows my mind. Because this is how you become, 1984 is one of my favorite books. They don't explain how they got to the George Orwell world, but this is how you do it. This is one of the steps that's required in order to live in a dystopian world like 1984. It just blows my mind that this is not on every single front page everywhere, because I don't care if you're a liberal, I don't care you're conservative. It's not a partisan issue. This is a freedom issue.
Yeah, are you surprised by that, John? Or do you find is it maybe just because the bill's so early in stages and maybe at the end of summer it'll be picked up? Or what's your take on that?
I don't like that smile. I don't like
that. I cannot peer into the hearts and minds.
Sure, of course.
But I was very disappointed with lawyers in Canada. There's some real heroes, and not just the Justice Centre's lawyers, but there were a lot of, a good number of lawyers across Canada who stood up for our charter rights and freedoms. But the vast majority of lawyers bought into this completely. Remember one of our staff lawyers, he's no longer with us, but he was with us for a while. But one of the reasons he left his firm and came to work with the Justice Center was that he was sitting down with his colleagues, with the partners, and he said these lockdown measures, these are serious violations of the charter freedoms of association and peaceful assembly and expression and religion and conscience and mobility, or right to travel, leave and enter the country freely. These are serious violations of charter rights. And every other lawyer at his firm kind of said, it's a public health crisis.
Yeah.
So now, what's the next excuse? And I often make this point: governments never take away your rights and freedoms without offering a nice sounding pretext. Mm-hmm. So it's public health, it's national security, it's securing our borders. Sometimes it's, the scary evil neighbor next door that might attack us. So we have to take away your rights and freedoms because we have to be militarily prepared for war. Public health is a big one. Safety and security. I call it the dreaded SS, safety and security. Mm-hmm. These are always the pretexts that are brought. Always. They never say, hey, we're going to take away your rights and freedoms because we really enjoy our power and we want more power.
Yeah.
They will never say that. And this minister, Ananda Sangari, if I got it right, of course he said, we have reviewed this very carefully to ensure that it complies with the charter. Well, every politician says that when they present a bill. We've reviewed this carefully to ensure that it respects charter rights and freedoms. That's par for the course. So, what you're doing, what other people do, is just this hard work, thankless work, mostly, of just alerting the public. But back to the lawyers briefly. Most Canadian lawyers did not care at all about the violation of charter rights and freedoms by lockdowns and vaccine passports. And now the criminal defense lawyers, they know this stuff. They know it far better than I do. I'm not a full, I know some criminal law, but these criminal defense lawyers, they know all about how the criminal justice system works, how police work, what police can do, what police cannot do. They have the expertise to come out to the forefront and explain this bill to Canadians. And maybe they're doing it and I missed it, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, John,
just before you swallow, I just wanted to ask, just to put one thing out there. If you want to make sense of that bill, read Mark Carney's book, Values. Because he keeps on, in his book, he keeps on talking about how one of the most important thing for people, what we value, as in what we believe in, what's important to us, is our health. And he uses COVID as something that we should use, a health crisis, in order to put the value, our monetary system, to work towards our general good, the population's good, which is the value that we have in being healthy. So once you start reading his book, you start seeing what his minions are putting in place, like this bill. You're starting to see that the lockdowns was planned. He's here to continue what I like to say that he's here to finish what Justin Trudeau started. Yet he was the one telling Justin Trudeau what to do behind closed doors. Let's be honest here. But just to say, if you haven't read his book and you really need something to be pissed off at, just read his book. You'll understand exactly what's going on right now. My apologies, Rob. Go for it, man.
Yeah, no worries. Because there aren't enough things to be pissed off about.
If you need something else to be pissed off at, read his book. You'll understand.
And just before I get to my next question, John, it's one thing I was thinking as I'm sort of listening to you talk is I really appreciate you trying to strike that balance between legitimate police investigation, police work, and actual infringement of rights and freedoms. Because I think sometimes when I hear people who are legitimately speaking out about this, in my personal opinion, sometimes it's like they almost go too far and they want to almost strip the police of any reasonable and valid ability to prosecute crime. So I really like that you're striking that balance. Just one other thing before I get to the next question is just a little pitch, guys. If you are tuning in for the first time, I see we're getting a lot of new viewers. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions for John, throw them in the chat, and at the end of it, we will get to them. If you do support this, if you want to support the show and independent media like this, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you want to, really, the best way you can support us is to become a member. That will give you full access to the Discord server, and you will get to support the show and help us build this community here. Because I think, we think there's, obviously we're a bit biased, but we think that there's a need for this kind of a show where we sort of just do away with the partisan bullshit and just really get to what's important to Canadians. So with that said, John, the next question I wanted to ask you is, it's in part 16, subsection 11.73, and I'll just bring it up right here. So this is under the Proceeds of Crime and Terrorist Financing Act. So basically it's based on this, which is, I don't need to read all of it, but it's essentially the thing that the government used to freeze the bank accounts of the truckers. It's the essentially banks have to, and any data, people that hold your data, whether it's internet companies or whatever, it's telling them that they have to cooperate with the authorities. I don't see anything about warrants. They have to, they will expected to give your data, your personal data, or freeze your account or whatever, based on, as long as it's disclosed to the person or entity by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police or a prescribed government department. So that was just for context, but the specific question I wanted is a little further down here under immunity. It says, no criminal or civil proceedings lie against a person or entity that, in good faith, collects or uses personal information under this part. So what I wanted to ask you is, again, is this a common thing to give blanket immunity to these companies? Because these are private companies, right? These are banks, these are internet service providers, these are any company that collects your data, and essentially they're saying you have to cooperate with the cops. I don't see anything about warrants. All I see is words like good faith. And not only that, but they are given blanket immunity. And frankly, that's one of the main reasons, that's one of the main protections we have as citizens, is the threat of, if the companies do something that is against the law, then we can go after them. So how concerned are you when you see stuff like this?
That's a very low standard. Almost everybody acts in good faith almost all of the time. Good faith is just a sincere belief that I'm doing the right thing. Like the three of us right now, we all believe we're acting in good faith. We're commenting on a bill. We're not trying to mislead. We're not trying to deceive. We're having a conversation in good faith. So it's basic sincerity. Well, most people, most of the time, are acting in good faith, right? It's only in a minority of the situations where somebody is deliberately doing something that they know is malicious or wicked or harmful. So it's almost it's not quite a platitude, but it's almost a platitude, because government officials, when they're going about their day-to-day business, they're acting in good faith. They're doing the best they can to do a job. They believe they're doing the right thing. They believe they're doing a good thing. So it's almost a description of the daily life of everybody as we go about our business. So to say, well, acting in good faith, and that's the standard, that's not even the standard for driving. For negligence, you have the standard of the reasonable person, and the reasonable person when driving is paying close attention and is being careful, et cetera, et cetera. You have the standard of the reasonable person. You don't say I was driving in good faith. That's
I was drunk driving in good faith. I had good faith while I was drunk driving. It's just, and it's impossible to disprove, right? How could you ever disprove it?
It's next to impossible to disprove. Whereas, at least if you have a standard of the reasonable person, well, now you've got, the reasonable driver, the reasonable babysitter, the reasonable employee, the reasonable employer. You've got a standard there that you have to meet. If you fall short of that,
it's subjective to the person's own feelings, right? It's outside of that person.
Yeah. Whereas the reasonable person test, it's not just based on, well, I feel like I'm being reasonable, therefore I am reasonable. No.
Yeah.
There's standards for whatever the context is, factory worker, employer. There's a standard of a reasonable person. And if you fall short of that and harm somebody, then you've committed the tort of negligence, and somebody can sue you for causing harm because you failed to meet the standard of behavior of the reasonable person, right?
Except under this bill,
that's a good standard.
There's blanket immunity, so that you can't do that.
Everybody acting in good faith. Yeah, no liability when you're acting in good faith. That means you have no liability. That's what it means, practically.
Exactly, right?
So blanket immunity.
So since you're on the subject of blanket immunity, because you talked about electronic service providers, and this is the problem with what Rob is talking about right now, because he's describing companies that actually hold your data, for example, being one of them that could not be held liable as long as they operate in good faith. But to put it into context, and I think, again, this I apologize for the people out there, but as somebody that's worked in the telecommunication world for 20 years, I'm a sales engineer by trade, so I used to design those type of technologies. Just so you guys know, what Rob is mentioning that would have good faith immunity is a lot more than what you're thinking. And I want to put just a bit of context to it, because in the bill, they are described as electronic service provider. Means a person that individually or as part of a group provides an electronic service, including for the purpose of enabling communication that provides the service to persons in Canada or carries on all part of his business's activities in Canada. Just to put that into context, considering that everything today has an electronic component, this is a question for you, John, or call me a liar or call me a fearmonger or conspiracy theorist here, but this means that this would apply to internet service providers, to bank institutions, to social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, YouTube, cell phone manufacturers, TV manufacturers, camera system manufacturers, car manufacturers. Pretty much anything that has an electronic component stores data today. And everything stores data.
Do you recall offhand if they define the word services? Because it could be broader. Yeah. Sometimes I wonder, well, the Justice Center is providing a service of information to inform Canadians about charter rights and freedoms and laws, et cetera, et cetera. So are we an electronic services provider? I mean, I hope not, but
Well, once again, I'm sorry, I'm going to piss you off, probably.
Service.
But Part 15 is the Authorized Access to Information Act. And the only definitions that they have under that bill is access, authorized person, core provider, electronic protection, electronic service. So there you go. Electronic service could be what you're talking about here.
It's a service. Okay, let's look at that.
You want to read it? Go for it. There you go.
Electronic service means a service or a feature of a service that involves the creation, recording, storage, processing, transmission, reception, emission, or making available of information in electronic, digital, or any other intangible form by an electronic, digital, magnetic, optical, biometric, acoustic, or other technological means, or a combination of such means. So a service or a feature of service that involves the creation, recording, storage, processing, making available of information in electronic, digital. That applies to it appears to apply to the Justice Center or an organization that is sending information. We send information to people. So does every charity. I mean, every church has a website. They send information to people. Everybody sending emails is sending information. And it's a service of sorts. I mean, our email newsletter is free of charge. People can sign up for it. Once they've signed up for it, even though they're not paying for it, they're getting a service. They're going to get an email from the Justice Center once a month or twice a month. So, wow. And the electronic service provider means a person that individually as part of a group provides an electronic service. Well, a person usually includes an organization and a corporation as well as a legal person.
Yeah, it seems like just the broad theme of this whole thing is just vagueness to the point of almost meaninglessness, and it's you see it again and again. It's almost hard. It's hard to believe that it's not intentional, and I don't think any of us actually do believe it's not intentional. I think we all probably suspect that there's a method to this madness. Go ahead, Johnny.
Heads up. One of the things you're likely to hear in the next few days, the next few weeks is don't worry if it's poorly worded. The government officials will exercise good judgment and good discretion when they're enforcing these laws, and that's just completely foolish. I mean, we saw during lockdowns that the Justice Center provided lawyers for a young man in Ottawa. He was 17 at the time. He was outdoors playing basketball alone. I don't even know if it was the basketball hoop on his own driveway. I think it was in a public park. He's at the public park by himself, shooting hoops into a basketball place. Got a $700 ticket. You know, this is what you get unless the law is very clear and very specific and very narrow. You get this abuse of authority, or you hear of social workers that are taking kids away because they disagree with the parents' religious teachings, or they have a fanatical across the board opposition to any kind of spanking, even though the Supreme Court of Canada in a ruling, you know, outlined certain conditions when spanking is permissible, right? But if you don't have narrow, specific legislation, I guarantee you it's going to be abused by public officers.
Well, that's just the history of governments, right? Like people need, even if you accept the premise that, and I do, that, you know, most government public servants, well, I know Nico, I know he's shaking his head. We don't always necessarily
no.
And you know, that's one of the beauty parts of this show is that we don't always agree on every single thing. We agree on the important things. We agree on the core importance of things like that free speech is an unassailable right and it has to be fundamental. And that, you know, there's a lot of really concerning things in this bill. But let's just say hypothetically, if you accept that most public workers are acting in good faith, they're human beings. We know that there are going to be some that won't, and you know, you just don't want to give the government that kind of power. Now, I did just want to before you
go, let me just one comment. How many people do you know that trust the government?
Oh, and I don't.
I don't know any. I don't know one single person that's like, I believe in the government 100%. We all know they take advantage of their power.
Yeah, but there's too many.
Look at that.
There's still people. Here's the problem. So many Canadians are ignorant of history, and it might be true, even more true for people who today are in their 20s and 30s, because history has been gutted from high school curricula.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So people don't know that we had the Soviet Union, for 70 years oppressing people. People sent to labor camps in Siberia where many died. People arrested, people imprisoned because they want to practice their faith, or because they disagree with the Communist Party, or because they're raising their own children with anti-communist beliefs. This was a tyranny that was in place for 70 years. Coinciding with that, we have the democracy in Germany, which was in poor condition. It was not a strong democracy. If it was a strong democracy, it wouldn't have fallen apart. But we have the history that people are not taught, that Germany went from a democracy where they had freedom of speech and religion, conscience, freedom of the press, etc., the right to privacy, government's not opening your mail, the right to due process. You can't just be locked up without being charged. They had all of these rights and freedoms in place, and it just went completely down the toilet. And then they had this tyrannical regime for 12 years, the National Socialists, known as Nazis for short. If people are not aware of history, that's where they get this, oh, well, government is like Santa Claus, and government's benevolent, and government would never harm me. Therefore, I don't care about my privacy rights. So that's the big problem. So I do think, I think there's way too many Canadians who trust the government way too much. And this is not being paranoid. This is just, anybody who's a student of history should know better.
Well, it's like, as Mark Twain said, right? Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. We are talking to John Carpay of the Constitutional. So I want to make sure I get this. Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. One thing you'd said a little while back that I think really bears repeating is, and I think everyone who, again, knows the history of governments, especially tyrannical ones, understands it's all fear-based, right? They keep you afraid, they keep you docile. And like you said, they'll never say, we're here to take away your freedoms because we're power-hungry psychopaths. They'll say, we're here to do it to protect you, to keep you safe. And I think it's really important for, people like us, especially people like you who have that platform and that experience to speak out. And so we're really appreciative of that. And I think, and we can talk about this later, but hopefully we will be able to get you back. I'd love to do it a regular thing. Anytime a bill comes up, if we could maybe do this kind of a deep dive, I got a feeling like our audience will love it. We really enjoyed having you here. I think, so that's the last of the questions that we have prescribed. So what I want to do now is just give you the opportunity. Was there anything that we missed that really jumped out at you that's really concerning that you wanted to talk about? And if not, there's a bunch of audience questions and comments that we can jump to, but I wanted to give you that opportunity first.
Well, we've covered the tip of the iceberg. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The Justice Center has now launched a petition to protect the right to use cash. Criminalization of cash is extremely dangerous. We are going to have a nightmare of tyranny if we have a central bank digital currency where government effectively can exercise control. You're at the mercy of government. Theoretically, you can have central bank digital currencies. So there's no more coins or bills. Everything is electronic. Everything is, it's numbers on your phone and numbers in the bank's computer system. And it's all numbers. It's all electronic. There's nothing tangible anymore. Theoretically, you could have that in place, and you can have a benevolent government that doesn't abuse it. Practically, unless you know nothing about history, government can exercise control over everything. And then they can start regulating and saying, well, we think that your speech is hateful, so we're going to prevent you from using your money to travel because traveling is a privilege. we've got the climate holocaust that we have to avoid. So traveling is a privilege, not a right. So because we think that your opinions are hateful or transphobic or homophobic or misogynist or whatever, we're going to say, look, traveling is a privilege. So you can still use your money for groceries, but you can no longer travel. This is the kind of totalitarianism that we could be there tomorrow. The technology is there to facilitate it. So this, I don't know if it's the worst provision, but this is pretty serious amendments to the Proceeds of Crime, Money Laundering, and Terrorist Financing Act, that they can collect and use their personal information without individual knowledge or consent, and criminalizing the use of cash in amounts of 10,000 or more. I agree, it's true. Very few Canadians are using cash when they donate $10,000 to a charity. Very few Canadians are using cash when they make a $10,000 purchase. But the point is, once this is on the books and we accept that cash is criminal, even when it's used for legal purposes, then the amount becomes $5,000, $1,000, $500, and then all of a sudden cash is gone. So sign the petition. You can find it at www.jccf, Justice Center Constitutional Freedoms, jccf.ca. Petition is there. Sign it. And you can forward that petition to all your friends. So sign it to preserve our right to choose cash.
One of the things that is worth mentioning is you don't need to look that far to see our government using their powers against the people. I don't have the whoop whoop. I lost all of my rights 3 years ago. It's not that far off. I could not leave. I was not allowed to be on public transportation. I was not able to go to restaurants, to bars, to gyms. I couldn't teach anymore. I couldn't work anymore. So we're not that far off. Like this is not conspiracy theories here. It happened to me. I was part of a small group of Canadians that couldn't go. I couldn't leave the country. I was not able on public transportation that my tax dollars are paying for. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere. I couldn't see family. I couldn't see anybody because I was a threat to the freedom of to the health of Canadians, right?
And I would have a message for people who supported the lockdowns and supported the vaccine mandates. I would say this: look, even if you don't change your mind on that and you thought that was justified, take into account that we've seen these powers exercised against an unpopular minority of people who didn't get injected. But you could still take from that, even if you supported lockdowns and vaccine passports, you can see it's possible to do that to millions of Canadians who did not get injected. Therefore, it's possible for the government to do that to everybody when it's, we're no longer talking about lockdowns and vaccine passports.
Yeah, and I think it's also, important to point out, as we discuss a lot, words like good faith and all that stuff, is the government has already proven, much of this, much of what they think is important is based on partisan things. If you remember during the lockdowns, you couldn't gather with your family. People were dying in solitude all over the West. Meanwhile, as soon as a left-wing issue came up, the BLM protests of that summer, I believe 2020, all of a sudden it didn't matter, right? Yeah. All of a sudden it didn't matter anymore. And it's kind of like, it's hard to take you seriously. Like, it either matters or it doesn't, because that doesn't sound like good faith to me. So we can already see in real time that the why it's necessary, as you said, to have specific wording and not be so vague as leave it up to the good faith and generous spirit of the government, which I think we all understand is not going to be, it's just not good. It's not a good way to structure society.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be spending a lot more time going through C-2 with a fine-tooth comb. So I've got to run, but if you want to discuss it more, I promise you the next time I'm back, I'm going to have, I'll be far further through and
keep in touch.
I don't know a little bit less frequently.
We'll keep in touch, John. I'll make sure to reach out to the Julians and the Bens of your organization. Okay. But I would really want, as much when you go more into detail, let us know, because we really want to make sure that this is something I've been fighting for my freedom for 4 years. And this, I don't understand. This is not a conservative liberal thing. This is a Canadian thing.
No.
So I just want to make sure that the people out there understand that this is a problem that needs to be addressed.
All right.
If you've got 30 seconds, John, I can give you there's a couple comments of people who are just thanking you for your time, or I can just very quickly go that. But yeah, there's a lot of people in the audience who are really appreciative of what you're doing here. And we really appreciate you taking the time to stop in. And hopefully we would love to have you back, either discuss this bill or perhaps any other one that may come up.
All right. Well, have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
You too, John. Thanks.
Have a good one, John.
We appreciate that.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
There you have it.
Yeah, that was cool. Guys, sorry we didn't get to the comments. I didn't realize I lost track of time. He really had to leave right at that hour and a half. But
yep.
We appreciate the comments. Guys, what do you think of that? And Aaron, to your question, I really wanted to ask that because I obviously I've been following the Amy Ham case quite a bit. I may just do my own.
Or just send them to me. I'll reach out to John.
Yeah.
We're talking behind the scenes, so I'll happily reach out. And he seems to be the type of guy that will address those questions, and we can have him on.
And actually, to be honest, Amy Ham, maybe I'll reach out to Amy Ham. We follow each other on X. She'd be a great guest. She lost her job as a nurse out in BC for just basically saying men can't be women. She just went through this really excruciating tribunal that founded that she was guilty recently, and then they sent her a bill for $150,000 to pay for their fuck ups. So yeah, I think she'd be a great guest. So yeah, thanks for that, Aaron. I'll see if she'd like to come on the show and talk about it.
But yeah, it again, these type of things don't surprise me because I've been facing that shit for 4 years. So I get it. It's just that now they're expending it to.
Now it's liberals and lefties who are getting, who are getting fucked too. And so now, yeah, it is different. But you're right. It's been the right that has been borne the brunt of this kind of.
No, but forget that part. I don't even care about that because I know liberal people, extremely liberal people that refuse to get whoop whoop. That ended up in the same boat as me. So it's not a political thing. It's just conservative have been silenced for years on social media. People don't want to hear what we have to say. I've been banned on so many accounts on social media just because I had the audacity to report the truth. Not my opinion.
Yep.
The truth.
Yep.
That was turned out to be true, and they won't give me my accounts back that I worked years and years and years on them. But the point is that it's not a political thing. You're a liberal, I'm a conservative, and I'm a lot more conservative than conservatives, but you're a common sense liberal, and there's a lot of you guys out there.
There is.
But we need to be able to have that conversation as to, this is not new. What we're talking about with John today is not new. I've been facing this shit for 4 years now. It never stopped. I never had anybody from my old job apologize to me. My family never came up to me to apologize. The friends I've lost over the years never came up to me to apologize.
No, and they won't.
The hundreds of thousands of people that have left me hate messages, hate comments over the years, they never gonna apologize to me. So, but you know what? I don't care. You don't need to apologize to me, but you need to wake the fuck up. That what they're talking about in this bill is giving them the power to do pretty much anything that they want to the people they don't agree with. And guess what? If men can't be women and women can't be men, and you agree with this, you're a target now because this is hate speech. If you don't think that we should give millions of dollars to LGBTQ pride parades, you're a target now. If you don't think that Mark Carney should be able to give $2 billion to Ukraine just because he wants to add another $2 billion to the 20 billions we already given, although Canadians are suffering left, right, and center, you're a target. You could be a target under that if that bill passes. So it's 100%. Anybody that they don't like. They have. I'm not saying that they will. They will. But what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that they will.
Not that they will. But yeah, spoiler alert, they will.
But they have the power to do so. Like you're giving them the power to do pretty much whatever they want, and a lot of that stuff is without a warrant. And a public officer. What the fuck's a public officer? A public servant? Somebody, an overweight person with purple hair that don't like my political views? That's a public officer.
And you know,
like,
and those
really?
kind of people, we all know they love to use the power of the state or the government if they have the option. And even if you want to be partisan about it and say, well, I don't care because I'm a woke liberal, and so you got to think ahead. It's going to be a conservative government someday. You do not want to give any government the power to do this to you, because at some point, a government you don't like will be in power. A government that does not like you will be in power, even if this one does. So we really got to speak out about that. Yeah, there's a lot of great comments here. We'll get into those here in a second. Aaron says, I'm a lifelong NDP voter, except twice I voted strategically for Liberals. This last election, I voted Conservative. Yeah, me as well. Actually, this sounds, well, not lifelong NDP, but I traditionally would vote Liberal. Last election, I voted Conservative, and I truly believe we're in the upside down. Nico, I'm listening now. Yeah, that's that's a great comment. I think, we all got to get there on our own time, in our own way. And if you watch the show a lot, you'll see there's still lots of things me and Nico don't agree on, but we agree on a lot of the important things. We agree on that there's a problem. We may not agree on the exact solutions for every single problem, but we do agree that there's an issue. And if you start from there, you can have a productive debate. And that's really what this show is all about. Clearly it's partisan in some degree. We do have our where we sit in our beliefs and blah, blah, blah.
Political biases.
Yeah, of course. We do have our political biases, but we're open about them. But at the end of the day, we're two common sense people in good faith trying to actually have productive debates and discussions to try to solve these problems. And most of the viewers and the people in this community are exactly that. And, just because I see there's a lot of new viewers here, because John certainly brought, I think, a lot of new eyeballs. If you have been watching and you do appreciate the show, if you think that there's a space for this kind of a show, that common sense middle that really comprises 60 to 70% of all of society, that silent middle, because right now political discourse is the loudmouths on both sides hurling. No one's trying to actually have a productive debate. They're just screaming insults at each other. And if you
explain what we do for those people, because we didn't.
Yeah. Because so obviously we are the political orphans. Me and Nico started the show a few months ago. We started talking, and we realized, we're on the opposite side of the spectrum in theory. At the same time, once we actually start talking about things, and when you approach issues in good faith, you realize you've got common ground on a lot more than issues than we think. Maybe 70 to 8% of the case. Even on issues we don't agree on solutions, we'll agree on the problems. And we realized, the way the discourse is out there these days, the media would have us believe that we could never have a productive conversation, that we have to hate each other, that we're our enemies. And what we're trying to do here is create a space where we just say no to that. We just reject that. There was a great comment here by Cheryl.
Let me just address this one here. Chris H is saying it's not just conservative getting censored on social media. The left is also, yes, but this is brand new. And the only left that's getting censored is the left that doesn't agree with the woke mind anymore.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
For conservatives, we've been censored for years, and they denied that we were censored. This is the problem. And what I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to blame anybody. I'm not trying to point fingers. I'm not trying to say that my censorship is more important than a liberal censorship. My point is that I'm very conservative in my values, and they banned me. They censored me. Now they're censoring their own. This is the point I'm trying to make, is that that scale has moved. Just like John is saying, right now it's $10,000 cash. How long do you think it's going to take before it's $100 cash, where no more transactions done by cash? And remember, during the whoop whoop times, what did they do? They refused cash payments. Do you think it's a coincidence? Oh, but it could pass the infection. No, it can't. But the point is that they still, in a lot of stores, banned cash transactions. They did not want to accept cash. Do you think that's a coincidence? No, they wanted to know where you spent your money, and they can't do it if you pay cash. It's plain and simple. So if you start looking at everything that's happening, it started with political adversaries like me. Now it's their own. That's my point. That shit is moving so far left that anything right of left is now considered extreme.
Far right.
But they're the one that's extreme. I'm not extreme. My values have not changed. I've been somewhere in the middle for 20 years. Yet I'm extreme now. This is the thing to say. That's all I'm trying to say. It's not a pointing fingers, not saying that conservatives are better than liberals. My point is that they started with me. Now they're coming after you. And this is the same government that was going after me that's going after you now. And do you think it's going to stop here? Of course not. Not with Bill like Bill C-2 that we just discussed. They want more power to go after whoever they want.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, like, core aspect of my politics is anti-authoritarianism. And I think we're all making a giant mistake if you think that's the right or the left, because throughout history, both sides have engaged in it. It's a pendulum. Right now, it's the left that engages in authoritarian behavior. And that's why, I mean, I still identify as a liberal, but I think it's important to speak out against it. I just want to take this question about a comment about Cheryl, because I think it just exactly ties into what I was just talking about. She says, Rob and Nico, what I like best about you guys in this show is that you bring us together as Canadians instead of separating us with labels. That's a great comment. We still use labels like liberal, conservative, because it still has some meaning. It gives us an idea that we're
just look at Rob. You know he's a liberal.
Yeah, talking about the same page. Yes. All the handsome guys were all liberals. Actually, no, that's probably, I can't even say that.
Nope. No. Wrong.
Yeah, wrong. But
Sorry,
I mean, for sure, one of the things we talked about when we started the show was those labels really are starting to break down. And I think it's primarily because the left has collectively lost its mind, or at least the far left, the woke left. I don't believe most liberals are woke left, far left idiots. I think the far left idiots, the woke, the woke left is just running the show. And there's probably 40 or 50% of the liberal left who doesn't really agree with a lot of this stuff, but they know that, like, they could never consider themselves conservative right wing, so they just go along with it. And what I've been trying to do, I mean, for me, what snapped was the trans stuff. A couple of years back, I when it first came out, we were like, trans women are women. And I think, they force team themselves onto the LGB. And as a liberal, I always was supportive of, gay rights and marry whoever you want. But I didn't realize that we were expected to believe that man address is actually a woman, and that he should have unquestioned access to female single-sex spaces. If he commits a crime, he should be placed in a female prison. If he's an athlete, he should be competing against female athletes. And then I once I started to dig into it, I started to realize, oh, hold on, a lot of these teenagers are getting transitioned are just gay. They would be otherwise, if left alone, would grow up to be gay young men or butch lesbians. And now they're having their breasts and their genitals cut off because they're told they're the opposite sex. And I was like, I didn't ever agree with this shit. And there's a lot of liberals like that, but I think there's value in people like us on the left to speak out, to give permission for us to say that it's not right, because it isn't.
Before we continue, I just noticed that John is still restreaming this while not being on air.
Okay.
So because the content we create is not necessarily about freedoms, constitutional freedoms, I'll disable the stream there. But for the people that are out there that are listening through John's platform or through the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom, guys, you can go at the Poli Orphans on X or on YouTube, join the conversation. But I'm just gonna kill the stream. So it's nothing against you guys. I don't feel right streaming on his platform without his consent, because he did not cancel the feed. So I just wanted to make sure, guys, if you want to continue this conversation at the Poli Orphans, THEPOLI Orphans on either X or YouTube, we're still going to stream for another 45 minutes. So make sure to join us. But I will be disconnecting the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom.
And just before you do, Nico, just to add on to what Nico said, guys, because I do feel like a lot of those viewers are going to be aligned with a lot of the stuff we're doing here. We do this show every day. We go live at noon. We're really big based on audience participation. So if you like the show, if you like what you hear, we've had a lot of really great guests like John. We have Billboard Chris. We have Maxine Bernier on back. So, if you think there's value for that kind of show, jump over there and like and share the stream. Follow us. All the action does happen on the YouTube channel. If you can see in the bottom right, all the action is. So if you want to, if you want to engage in the conversation, if you want to keep, support us, become a member, head over to YouTube. That's the way to do it. Otherwise, we appreciate you guys jumping on and giving us your time today. For everyone else, we're still here for another 45 minutes or so. So we'll just, we'll cut that there. Angry Beaver, about time. just fucking with you, man. Became a member. It's our newest orphan. We appreciate that, sir. Guys, the best way to support us, once you're over on the YouTube channel, you can become a member, and that will give you full access to the Discord server that it's still pretty new, so we're just getting off the ground now. But one thing we say around here a lot is we're not just doing a show. We're trying to create a community, because there's a lot of people like us out there who maybe we don't fit in all the perfect labels of left and right. And it's just a place for us to go. If you stick around, you'll see there's often quite a bit of disagreement on some issues, but we all do it respectfully, and we actually have a lot more common ground than you might think, than the media would have us think. So if you do appreciate what we're trying to do here, come on over and be a member.
So I did kill the stream. I didn't feel right using his.
No, it's the right thing to do.
Stream, because I noticed it. I'm like, he's still there. So I don't want people to believe that we speak for him or we speak for.
No, that's true. That's
for their organization, which we do not. We definitely do not. But I do believe, as you said, that there's a lot of stuff that we talk about that they will agree on, because
yes.
At the end of the day, all we want is to. I want to stand for freedom. That's all that matters to me, is freedom of speech, number one, and I don't want my government to have a lot of power. So,
yes,
and I believe 100%. In gun
100%.
rights. Those are my three, right?
Yep.
So,
as Joe says, Angry Beaver is now officially, yes, he's one of us. One of us. As Joe says, I've been here for months, and no one, not even Nico, has called me a libtard yet.
I don't want to insult. I wouldn't want to insult libtards by calling you that.
No, I mean, Joe's a great example of what we're talking about. You're
not getting what I'm saying. He's too dumb to be. I said I don't want to insult libtards by calling Joe that.
I got you. Yeah, you were waiting for that. You were saving that one. But Joe's is. I'm that
witty. Sorry.
Yeah, on a lot of issues, Joe's pretty far left, but he's also been a pretty important part of this community from the start, really. So, I mean, he's a great example of exactly what we mean, and we have other people who are pretty far on the right, and but we all managed to make it work. We managed to get along, and that's one of the the great things about this show.
I just wanted to see that we took that one. Big thanks to Tammy saying big thanks to John for offering his time and expertise, and to the orphans for requesting it. Not enough people are talking about this bill seriously, and I'm glad you guys are. It's just the beginning. I'll never stop talking about this.
Yeah, exactly.
So
right.
We appreciate that. Thank you so much for John. He'll be back. I guarantee you.
Well, I mean, that'd be a huge asset if he was willing to come on for an hour. So every time a bill came out that we wanted to talk about,
let me deal with that. But there's other things. I want to talk to them. We'll see if they agree to it. I have kind of a non-official yes to now, up to now, but he agreed on the show that he would come back to speak about Bill C-2 again. So perfect.
Okay, cool.
But there's also. I did not realize that I got a list from one of his guys of everything that they work on, like what do they do as an organization, and they touch on a lot of subjects. But one of the things that they touch about is religious freedom. So I'm very, very curious to have him on so that he can explain what's going on in Canada right now, like why are Muslims capable of doing what they're doing by blocking intersections like Bloor and Yonge in Toronto, a lot of places in Montreal where I'm from. Why is it that the Sikhs are able to walk around with knives around their waist? I can't do that. Like
no helmets when you're driving a motorcycle.
Exactly. How does that align? But why is it that you have Christian pastors on side of the street that are getting arrested for preaching? Like this is the thing I want to see.
Yeah.
I don't care, Joe, even before you go into it. I don't care that you don't like religions. I get it.
Joe. Yeah.
Of course. That's why I'm calling him out right now. And unfortunately for you, Joe, I'm with the microphone. But the point is that there's there needs to be one standard for everybody. Why can they do something and I can't because I'm not a preferred religion? So I want to see where it sits legally. I'm really curious to see where it sits legally, if they even have the rights to do it.
I don't think it's
just that people just don't talk about it.
Yes,
that's all they need. I'll be that guy. I'll take the heat for it. I take it every day. So I got no problems as a Christian showing up and saying, you know what? I want to do this. I can't. Arrest me. We'll put it on camera, and then I can have John help me out, get out of trouble.
Yep. I don't think there's any. Yeah, I don't think there's any legal basis for it. It's just ideological. It's kind of like with the DEI stuff that's been going on this like everywhere. That's absolutely illegal what they're doing, where they're discriminating against people based on race. But ideologically, it's a discrimination against a race that's acceptable these days. People are now starting to actually push back, and lawsuits are actually being filed against places like Harvard and whatnot. But they did it so openly that like these are very easy cases to win because there's like a ton of evidence that that's exactly what they were doing. And also just to what you were talking about, like religious freedom, just because I know also Joe would probably chime in as well. Part of religious freedom is also the freedom from religion as well. And that means that you do not have the right to force your religion on the rest of us, i.e. by blocking streets and praying in the middle of the fucking city, right? That's part of religious freedom as well, is protecting the rest of us from having a preferred religion forced down our throats. Let me see here. There's quite a few.
Screen if you want to,
Yes. Gotcha. Joe says, sadly, tens of millions of idiots down here in the States would welcome this kind of tyranny. If the Mandarin candidate, do you mean Manchurian candidate? Or no, Mandarin because he's orange, said it was necessary to deal with illegal immigration. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, Joe's, injecting some of his Joe politics here. And I think there's millions of idiots everywhere on all sides of the spectrum. Most people are sheep. Most people just want to be told what to do and believe that they're safe. And that goes for the right and the left. And I have no doubts that you are correct in that statement.
There was a question earlier from Aaron saying, somewhat off topic, but is this the organization that is helping Amy Ham with her case? If so, thank you. It is actually. I just Googled it.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
It took me.
That's amazing.
It took me to a page for the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom saying that the JCCF is providing lawyers for British Columbia nurse Amy Ham, whose disciplinary hearing will conclude on March 18-19. So yeah, it seems like they were them. So I'm already reaching out to the people that I know at the organization to see who's the lawyer and if we can have her on. Yeah, have her or him on.
Yeah, well, I'll reach out to Amy too. That'd be great. Yeah, that's a great story. I think it'd be great. Chris H says the knives at the sixth carrier for religious ceremonial purposes. Yeah, that's the point. We're a secular society. You got to follow the same rules as everyone else. I do not give a shit about your religion. You have the right to practice it in private, just like everyone else. But public safety has to come first. I do not give a shit if it's relevant to your religion. If it's so important that you need your knife on you at all times, then don't move here. Don't come here because.
So Chris H, you believe that it's okay for them to have that right? Because why is it that they get to do it and I don't get to carry my knife?
Yeah.
Like I have a fighting dagger that I've trained with. That's about the same size as the daggers that they carry. This is to save my own life if somebody ever attacks me. So why is it that they get to carry a ceremonial knife? And it's not a plastic knife, right? I don't know if you know, but open that.
It's just a real
remove
knife.
that knife from that sheet. It's a real knife, and that will take a body part if you play with it.
There's a reason why you or I or anyone else is not allowed to walk around in public with a knife like that. It is a danger. It remains a danger just because someone has a religious belief about it. We live in a secular society, and it's becoming increasingly less so. But if you want to keep it that way, the only way to do so is just to have the same rules apply to everyone else. Your religion does not have a place in public life. Private life, sure. If there was some law being passed saying that Sikhs can't practice a religion, I'll be in the streets even though I'm clearly not sick or Sikh. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Sick.
Sick.
That's
bro.
arguable. That's arguable.
But yeah, it's just you can't have exceptions and privileges made for people because of their religion in a secular society. We live in a secular society, or we do not, and we need to decide what we want. Chris continues, DEI is not designed to discriminate. DEI is meant to expand the pool of people being hired. I would strongly disagree. It's entirely designed to discriminate. It's just designed to discriminate against unfavored identity groups, specifically white men, straight white men specifically. And that's just wrong. Again, one of the reasons, like, as a liberal, one of my main critiques against the left, one is gender identity ideology. The other is just identity politics in general. And it's because I've observed, do you remember the 90s? Remember how like racism really wasn't that big of a problem? As a society-wide level, yes, I know racists still exist. And yes, police were probably had, needed to be reined in more than they were, the way that they are now, with body cams everywhere and stuff. But as a society, it's racial tensions has gotten way worse. And I think that is directly caused by the left's now obsession with identity politics and distilling all of us down to our immutable traits and ranking us in value based on those traits. You cannot, and I accept that in the past, yes, there's been a big advantage to being a white man, but you cannot fight discriminating against race by discriminating against race. Yeah, you can't fight racism by being racist just because it's the good racism. That's a nonsensical proposition. The only way to do it, the only way it can work, if you truly are anti-racist, is to have blanket rules and laws against discrimination against race that apply to everybody. Anything else just creates tension, it creates social division, and it's wrong. But I appreciate your comment, and I don't want to seem like I'm shitting on you or anything. You've been commenting here for a while now, and I consider you part of the community, and I do appreciate your comments. So hopefully, I know it kind of sucks being that we have the microphone, we kind of get the last word, but it's the way it is.
Yeah, but Chris H seems to imply, like, personally, I've never seen a Sikh in public with a knife. I can show you videos. They were celebrating on Parliament Hill last weekend in Ottawa. I know they carry them, but in regular day-to-day, was a Sikh guy in my class. I've never, because you didn't see him doesn't necessarily mean they don't carry. But the point of the matter is that they're allowed to carry a knife of a size that I cannot carry. I cannot go on my motorcycle, like my helmet is right there. I am not legally allowed, not that I would, I'm not a fucking idiot, but if I cannot ride my motorcycle without having a helmet on, they can. Why is it that if I was a police officer, I could not have a cross over my shirt, yet they can wear their headbands?
Is that true? Sorry, a cop can't have a cross? Nope. See, that's wrong. Nope. I'm an atheist. No, I'm not a Christian.
They are allowed to have their hair in a bun under, and I apologize, I don't remember what the head wrap is called, but that is a religious thing. Yeah, I think it is. I think it's called a turban, but the point is that this is a religious exemption. They get to do it, but I couldn't do it as a Christian. Like, I couldn't have a cross. The point is that it needs to be the same across the board.
It's the only way you can do it in a diverse society.
And you know what? This is why Joe and I, as much as I don't agree with a lot of things that he says, and he doesn't agree a lot of things that I say, this is why he keeps on coming back, and I keep on enjoying the conversations with him. Is actually Nico, Rob, and I all have very similar views on the freedom of religion. And this is the point. Joe's not a religious guy. Clearly, if you show up to this show, he's made it very fucking clear that he's not. I'm a Christian, and it's okay that Joe doesn't like my religion. It's okay that he doesn't. But at the end of the day, that doesn't stop me from having the rights to practice it. And it should be the same across the board. I have no problems with people telling me that I should not be preaching on corners, not to bother people. Okay, if that's what we decide as a society, you know what? I disagree. But okay, sure. But that means that Muslims don't get to block roads because they feel like praying when they have all the mosques in the world. They don't get to go in front of my church praying in front of an actual Christian place when I wouldn't be able to do that. Sikh don't get to not wear a helmet or walk around with a knife. If I don't get to if pastors don't get to preach, that means they don't get to do it either. So it needs to be the same across the board. And I have no problem with Canada not being a religious country anymore. There's been a separation of state and religion since the 70s. I got no problems with it. But be the same across the fucking board. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, just again, I'm an atheist too, but just from a perspective of a Christian, it just offends my sense of fairness and justice when I see, like, imagine if you're a Christian and the Christian community has, by and large, given up their rights to practice their religion in public, right? Church prayer is no longer in schools. They're not out there engaging the public the way Muslims are. So how must it feel to them to say, okay, we've accepted, we do live in a secular society. We don't need to have our religion out there in the public. We're going to practice it in private. But then they see other religions out there who are granted permissions to do so. That's not right. It creates social tension. And you could say things like, oh, who cares? It's a helmet. I mean, personally, I would say, okay, then just say no one needs to wear a helmet, right? I think I don't need the nanny state. If someone wants to ride with a helmet, that's on a motorcycle, that's fine. But you cannot have separate rules for people based on their religions, even if they're just silly rules. And, where you're saying, I've never seen a Sikh in public with a knife, well, that just proves they don't really need to then, right? Clearly, if sometimes they don't have it, it's not absolutely prescribed. So now you're just saying if they want to have it, they can, and they can have it because of, because of the religion. And you got to go back to why is it illegal in the first place? Because it's been deemed to be a public safety health risk to have someone walking around with a giant ass knife. That risk is not at all diminished just because a person belongs to the Sikh religion. Public health has to take priority over someone's personal religious beliefs. And if you don't like that, don't come to Canada, because we, at least officially, are still a secular country. It's just, if I go to someone's house and they have a very strict no shoes on in the house policy, I might not like that. I wear my shoes in my house. But if I don't like that, if I refuse to take my shoes, I'm not going to go to their house, because that's their house. They have the right to set it up however they want.
So just to prove a point here, Chris H., it would be unfair to stop someone from wearing a crucifix at work. Well, look at the screen right here, brother. RCMP officers are generally not permitted to wear a crucifix on their uniform, while the RCMP does allow for some religious accommodation, including the wearing of religious headwear like turbans or
hijabs.
Even Canada.ca is saying religious item or accessories, example Christian cross, which are not visible or otherwise apparent.
Not visible, of course. You have to hide it. You have to hide it as a Christian, but the Sikhs and then Muslims, they can proudly be Sikh and Muslim, and that's wrong. And I mean, Chris, like I kind of like, I'm a liberal too, right? It's up until 2 years ago, I know that you would. I know the immediate thought is, oh,
do you remember this guy?
Not particularly,
This is somebody that was that was the first Sikh RCMP officer.
Okay.
And now there's a bunch of them. And I'm not saying they should be officers. That's not what I'm saying.
Of course they should be. Yeah, of course they should be.
But are you telling me that those guys are not, that is not a religious statement what they're wearing? Even Canada.ca, even the government of Canada says that it is. So nobody can argue with me that it's not. So why is it that an officer, an RCMP officer that's a Christian, could not have a cross if you're allowed to wear that? And you know what? If your religion doesn't prevent you from taking it off in public, don't become a police officer. Do you know what I'm saying? This is all, there are requirements. And you know what? If you're too fat, you're out of shape, you can't become...
Same thing. Well, life isn't fair.
But that's my point. So at the end of the day, man, there are restrictions that needs to be put equally across the board. I don't care that you score higher than I do on the woke totem of importance. I don't care. I really don't care.
Like Chris, one thing that kind of opened my eyes about what's going on here on the left is when you understand like what woke is and identity politics are, it is where we We reduce every person down to their immutable traits, right? Their race, their sex, their gender, their sexual preference, their religion. And then we rank them in order of importance. And if you are ranked higher, you get special privileges. If you are ranked lower, you get less. And that's not a way. You cannot run a diverse society like that. It just creates division. It creates problems. And I know that, you were probably surprised at that, as I was, just that fact that Christians cannot wear their crucifix. But hopefully you can see that this actually is going on. This is what's happening. I know as a liberal, the general instinct, up until about 2 years ago for me, when I heard stuff like that, I was like, oh, it's just right-wingers complaining, they're whining. That's not going on. That's not happening. Teenagers are not really getting their genitals cut off. Gender affirming care isn't being done to kids. And then you find out, oh no, it actually is. So I really like this comment here by Erin. She says, I miss the 90s. And I feel like the 90s was that sweet spot, right? And I'm going to say something that right now that Nico's not going to agree with. But as a liberal, I believe that up to the 90s, we got to that sweet spot because of liberal activism, because of liberal policies. Like that's what made, homosexuals acceptable. Like you could be gay and it didn't matter. When in the 90s, if a boy played with dolls, it was okay. He was a boy who played with dolls. Now it means he's a girl and we got to cut his genitals off because of left-wing activism. So what I would say is I think the 90s got to that sweet spot because of left-wing activism or liberal activism. And now since then, it's gotten much worse also because of liberal activism. They went as far as they got to the sweet spot and then they kept going. And that's the problem. There's no concept in liberal activism that's baked in where you can ask yourself the question, have we gone far enough? Have we actually stopped it? They'll tell you. If you're racist, if you ever ask the question, have we done as much as we can on race relations? We've changed law, we've changed policy, and that's valid. You cannot change attitudes with law and policy. You have to wait for that to catch up. But the liberal activists will say, oh, no, racism still exists. We still have to keep pushing with this DEI bullshit. We got to discriminate against white people because, historically, black people have been discriminated against. And all it does is put us backwards. It just creates more racial division. And we got to put, if you're truly against racism, as I am, you have to understand the primary cause of it today. And that is DEI, woke identity politics. And that is coming from the left.
But it's not something I'll have to argue with you a lot on what.
Oh, I know you would.
But the liberal, this has nothing to do with what happened in the 90s. It's something that started happening after the Second World War and even arguably the beginning of the 20th century when we had the First and the Second World War, when women were leaving the home to actually work because their husbands weren't here. Population still needed shit to be done, and women did the shit that men used to do when they were at war, right? So this is where it started. But the point is, this has been going on forever. Like the indoctrination that we're seeing right now is generational. This started with the baby boomers are the ones responsible for the state in which we are right now because they enabled this. It's not something that started in the 90s, right?
No, that's
it's something that started happening after the Second World War. It's just we're at the end of the cycle where shit's getting fucked. Like we're fucked.
Oh yeah. Chris says, I think the whole idea of woke and identity politics is being misunderstood. Even the lady that created the concept of identity politics said her concepts are being misunderstood. So I mean, if you were, you probably weren't here a few months back, but when we had Jason as a regular contributor, he would often say, no, that's not what woke is. It started in the black community. I understand that. I know the history of it. But the point of a system is not what it's intended to do. It's what it actually does. And even if, and I'm willing to accept that the intentions perhaps may have been good, the fact is we have to look at what it's actually doing, and it's not doing good anymore. It is now causing many of the problems that it's supposedly trying to fix. Why do you think LGBT disapproval is on the rise? It isn't because people started hating gay people again. It's because the freaks and the trannies and the drag queens insisted on reading to kids. They insisted on going after the kids and cutting off their genitals just because they didn't fit into a very specific traditional gender norm. It's okay for a boy to play with dolls. It doesn't mean he's a woman. And so again, it's just another example of left-wing activism have gone too far and is now actually hurting the cause that it is supposedly trying to help.
Just to answer Aaron Murphy's question, what happened with Bill 21? Is it in effect? Yeah, it's been, as per what I can find, it's been in effect since 2019. So there were, as far as I know, Court of Appeal ruling was ruled, renewal, current status as of June 17th, 2025. Bill 21 remains in effect. It's been challenged a few times, but just so
Which
you know,
one's
it's about
Bill 21?
It's about religious It's about religious symbols and stuff.
Oh,
like that.
okay.
They call it laïcité in French. Laïcité, sorry.
Okay,
in
I
French.
got you.
But it's
And
about
that might have a chance because it's in Quebec, right? Because Quebec is given broad leeway to sort of be in charge of this stuff, and maybe that's maybe once it's allowed in Quebec, hopefully it'll take over in the rest of Canada.
So just so you guys know, it's basically giving the power to the Quebec government to assert secular status and prohibit public sector employees in positions of authority, such as teacher, police officers, judges, and government lawyers, from wearing religious symbols, as in hijabs, kippah, turbans, while on duty. So I see no problem with it, no problem at all. But to go back to Joe made a very interesting comment earlier that kind of blew my mind, because I had never thought about it this way. But he mentioned somewhere, I'm looking for the comment, but he was basically saying or asking if, there you go. Are public school teachers public servant in Canada? Yes, they are. I saw your message earlier. I researched it, and they are.
Interesting.
So basically, with Bill C-2, public servants, public officers, school teachers now could potentially have powers. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Because my kids, one thing's for sure, my kids are not going to public school. They are going to be homeschooled. My wife and I are doing everything that we can to make that possible. We'll live in a fucking cardboard box if that's what it means to afford a tutor to show up to complement what we cannot teach our son. Yep. But the point of the matter is that you blew my mind with that comment, Joe. I never thought about it until you mentioned it. And as per the definition, public school teachers
that has
public
all sorts of implications.
I did not realize that. Fuck you, Joe, for being smart.
He is. Chris, just to follow up, he says these kinds of conversations are important. Thanks for having them. Hey, I know I can get animated about this topic. By no means is that meant to be interpreted as me like going after you specifically. You've been here for a little while, and we really appreciate your comments. We're all pretty open-minded, and that's kind of what we're trying to do on the show, is just have that productive debate. And we really appreciate your comments, Chris. And I agree, it's important to have these discussions.
Chris, don't worry. Even if he sounds like he's belligerent, he's like 5'6" or 5'8". So
my bro.
I told you about that video.
That isn't actually true.
Oh, okay. Without your lifts. Okay,
you have lifts. I don't have lifts. I'm like 5'10", maybe like 5'9".
The fact that you're saying maybe 5'9",
all right, 5'7", all right, 5'6", fine, 5'3", all right, 5'1", but that's it. Final offer. Okay, 5 foot.
That was a great video. I think I mentioned it before, but I absolutely love it. It's an Asian woman. She seems to be a very small woman, and she's just like, I've always wondered why my husband tends to laugh at me when I get mad at him. And then I decided she took her cell phone and she put it at the height of her husband and then tilted it down to point at her. And she recorded herself talking in the phone. And she's like, oh shit, is that what my husband sees all the time? And I did it with my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law's like 4'9", 4'10". And she's always she's Italian, right? So she's always telling me, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, because I tease her all the time. Yeah. And I recorded her while she was doing it. And I'm like, would you take this seriously? And this is the point I'm trying to make. Imagine that you're looking down on Rob, Chris. It's not very scary.
Well,
I mean, if you didn't show me that it bothers you that I make fun of your height, I would never make fun of it.
It doesn't really bother me. It's just,
sure.
Yeah. How would you even know? All we ever see is each other like this.
Oh, you can tell. Like, have you not seen the guy online? I'm gonna send him your video. There's an Asian guy online that's fucking epic. He takes videos that are shared. People send him videos where people are claiming that they're this tall. Oh, I'm 6'7" and blah 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 blah. He takes the videos and mathematically, it's insane what he does. He shows you the calculations, but he finds products or things that are in your environment, finds their height, and starts extrapolating your height. And he does it scientifically. Like, he shows you the calculations. It's insane. I should send one to him. Just to say, like, he can calculate.
And he'll tell you, motherfucker's about 5'10", 5'9", maybe. my ID says 5'10". I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, yeah, but you can tell them anything. I could have told them I was 6'5", and they would have.
Oh, yeah, you could. Yeah. Well, no, they wouldn't, because you're not.
Bro, you're capable of having passports in Canada that says I'm a woman. So don't give me this shit that they wouldn't believe me that I'm 6'9".
Yeah.
Right?
Aaron Murphy says, in the 80s, us girls loved the men in makeup, big hair like Platinum Blonde. And I only bring this comment up because Joe says, I played a gig with Platinum Blonde in Buffalo back in 2002. They were great guys living in a 24/7 social room. That's cool, Joe. I guess your picture should have given away the game that you were a rocker. But if not, even without the guitar, I would have been able to tell by your hair. What was your band's name called? Out of curiosity. And then back to the topics. Aaron says, I'm a former librarian in the public sector and academia that left because of the indoctrination and authoritarianism happening. And I'm looking into assisting with homeschooling for these reasons. Yeah, it seems like librarians and libraries, for whatever reason, are like at the tip of the spear of this shit. It's not a coincidence that they're hosting that's where people are going to do the drag queen story hour. It's funny, how the drag queens never go to the retirement homes and do story hour with old people. For some reason.
Oh yeah, that's a coincidence, bro. I don't know what you're trying to say there, but it's obviously a coincidence. Massive coincidence.
Just a giant coincidence. Angry Beaver says, YouTube doesn't like me. It's blocking my comments again. I mean, it isn't us. If it's that,
it's making a great point.
Nico,
like Angry Beaver saying, yep.
Yeah. They're all public. Yeah. Angry Beaver says, technically that would make clerks, janitors, receptionists in the DMV and Health Canada all public servants. And I mean, that really kind of changed, it's got broad implications for a lot of laws, not least of which the ones we were talking about today.
But I think that's the whole point. Let's not lie to each other here. Let's not believe that this was a mistake, that they didn't have the time to properly write the bill in a way that was specific. It was done on purpose. They do it on purpose to be as unclear as possible so that they can interpret it any way they want in the future. Like, don't underestimate those people by thinking that they're idiots. Like, this is one of the problems that I see with people all the fucking time. They think that politicians or prime minister, that Trump in the US, they're all stupid. They're not fucking stupid. You might not like them. You might think that they're evil as shit. Mark Carney is evil as shit. In his book, he's fucking evil as shit. But I would never tell you that he's not smart. That guy he's not even smart. He's fucking brilliant in what he's doing. Absolutely. How can you be that much of a twat and still have half of the country believe that you're standing up to Trump right now? He's brilliant. And the way that he's doing it, it's absolutely brilliant. That people are still falling for this shit, but that's how good he's manipulating the news and manipulating his image to fit whatever narrative that he wants. So don't underestimate those people thinking that they're stupid. That bill was not written out of stupidity. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly the type of powers that they want. And they expect people to not read the fucking bill. And that is why you and I, at least it's myself, I spend so much time reading it. And I will continue having guys like John on the show to talk about it. And I will make sure to promote everything that he talks about, even if it's not on this show, because goddamn, people need to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't agree more. And I think, I really don't see a whole lot of people talking about this bill. And I think part of it is what we were talking about before the show. Some of it's just, it was first reading, bills aren't don't typically get a lot of attention in the media as well. But that said, I mean, it's the first bill. It's really the first real bill they put out. Like, you would think, I got a feeling like it's intentional why it's not getting a lot of, coverage in the media. But sooner or later, people are going to start looking for it. They're going to start asking, what is this bill about? And I think it's good that we're doing these things now, because it's going to, people are going to have a resource to be able to. I think this one interview that we did, I thought that was excellent. I think if someone just takes an hour and a half, however long John was here, and just watches that, it's a really good information session for what's in the bill and why it's problematic. No
biases at all, but we did a fucking good job.
I thought it was a great interview. Yeah, exactly. Completely no bias whatsoever. No bias whatsoever.
Just speaking the truth on this one.
Yeah, we gotta. Yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's okay to know if you did something good. Joe says back then it was called Monkey's Hamlet. That's the name of his band. Best band you never heard of. Proof that talent and mental illness often occupy the same space. Hey, brother. Yeah, I mean, there's a very fine line between genius and madness, and I think the history of brilliant artists shows that well. Joe says Bill Burr said it best. Woke was okay up until middle-class white women stuck their Gucci booted feet into it. Yeah, I mean that's pretty funny, and I would tend to agree. It's kind of funny to come from Bill Burr because he's a little bit woke himself, I think. But
a little,
yeah. Well, I'm being diplomatic. But yeah, that is funny coming from Burr.
But at the same time, you know what? I hold on.
Yep.
Bill Burr.
Bill Burr
as the guy that used to be a very good comedian that got woke as shit.
Yeah.
Since he moved to California. Yeah.
It seems like he got
bald-headed redhead.
Yep.
He used to be awesome.
Yeah.
Now he did his movie, Old Dads or whatever fuck it's called, where he's woke as shit, and then he has a massive TDS going. Like, man.
Well, once you're in the
love that guy, mega twat now.
Once you're in the Hollywood machine, right? You got to you either got to play ball or you're going to be blacklisted.
I've said this before, man, and I'll say it again on my social media. I don't think I've ever said it on the air, but in order to achieve this type of success, you're selling yourself. You're giving something away that you might be selling your principles. You might be, whatever it is, you're selling yourself short. You're taking a payment instead of your principles. However, make it spiritual, make it monetarily, make it whatever you want. There's a cost to being that popular.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I think it's possible to do it, but without selling yourself out in some way. But I think it happens more often than not.
Not to that level. You don't achieve that level of fame. We're talking 1% of the 1% of comedians here. Bill Burr is one of the most spoken about comedians in the U.S., right? And how many comedians are there? 100,000.
I don't think Dave Chappelle. I don't think Dave Chappelle sold himself out. Like, I think it's possible to do it.
He lost $50 million back in 1990 something or beginning of the 2000s.
Well, yeah.
That's what it cost him, right?
Yeah.
That's what it cost him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But he is nowhere close to the. He's nowhere close to the.
Tiffany Jane says Joe Rogan. Yeah, I think I think you can definitely find examples of people who probably haven't sold.
Joe Rogan sells himself all the time. What are you fucking talking about? He's backtracked many of his comments that he's made on this podcast afterwards because it offended people. Now he's one of the most outspoken person out there, but he's apologized multiple fucking times for saying stuff that on his podcast. Well, because keep in mind, when you go for 3 hours a day, and believe me, I edit all our content, I say a lot of dumb shit on a daily basis. I'm the first one to admit to that. He backtracked a lot of his comments over the years. 100.
It depends on what it's about. Like, if you just actually misspoke and you it's something you don't actually believe, and you just I don't think there's nothing wrong with saying, oh, I said that wrong, my bad. But if it's something he actually does believe,
he apologized. Apologizing to the woke crowd. He's done that.
Oh, for being
he's had to kiss. Okay. He's had to. Think about it this way. He is probably, I don't know if he still is, but he used to be the biggest podcast on the planet, at least in the US.
I think he still is.
It's arguable, like it changes all the time. But the point I'm trying to make is that he is the biggest podcast on Spotify, and that they hold the rights.
Oh, that's
not
right.
As in, produce the but they have that's the only place that the audio version of his podcast is available. You can go to his YouTube channel and find the whole thing, but he's had to backtrack some of his comments. Now, working for such a woke companies, it's amazing what he's been able to get away with. Because many times Spotify employees are like, we're going to go against Joe Rogan. Yeah, but the company's like, hey, bro, shut the fuck up. Like that dude runs our fucking basically is the biggest show on our platform. Shut the fuck up. But he had to apologize a few times in the past, which that's the price. That's the price of being.
Well, I was just gonna say it's gonna be the price, and I'd have to see the specific issues he's apologizing for before I really have a firm opinion. But hypothetically, let's say this show took off and got picked up by Spotify, that is gonna be the price. We're not gonna be able to say what we say now. We're still gonna. I'm not saying we'll be different people. We're still going to say our takes, but we're going to have to be even if it's just like the swearing or whatnot. We're going to definitely have to cut back on some of that shit. There's
one of the things that he did. I know more of these because I'm pretty sure he walked back some comments last year. But I remember that's like 3 years ago. Joe Rogan apologizes after a compilation of him using racial slurs spreads. So something he had recorded 10, 12 years before as a joke, because he has a lot, he's very good friends with guys like Dave Chappelle. And I guarantee as a guy that spent a lot of time with black guys, I have used the N-words directly in their face. They have called me crackers back. This is, bro, that is just a fucking fact. Men fuck around with each other, and that is one of the fuckeries that we use. And that's what the video was about. It was kind of, not should he have said that in front of a camera? I won't, out of respect to the people that I don't know.
Yeah.
But if I ever use the words with some of my bros, fuck yeah. And I have no problems fucking using them because they know that they're going to turn around and be racist towards me. And that's how guys are. I don't give a fuck what people say. This is how it is. Now, do you do it in front of a camera? That's a different story, but he had to backtrack comments from 10 or 12 years ago. Yeah, see, 12 years. Rogan used the word more than 20 times in the clips from different podcast episodes, which he said were compiled over a span of 12 years. So this is how bad the cancel culture is, right? People have gone through 12 years of fucking content to identify comments, and he has 2,000 podcasts, maybe more. I wouldn't be surprised if he's close to 3,000 episodes.
Yeah.
He said something that offended you in 20 episodes out of 3,000. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like that at all. The way the left will go back 10, 15 years about some fucking thing you said, and just remove it from context and whatnot, and just really hammer them. But yeah, I think that's bullshit. It's
should movies go back? They're quoting him. Rogan claims that he previously used the N-word as part of a context, such as when he was discussing Richard Pryor's, or repeating the use of the word in Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. How many Quentin Tarantino movies where Quentin Tarantino is playing a role himself and dropping the N-word? He's done it so many fucking times. Does that mean we should cancel his movies? It's so at the end of the day, man,
it's stupid.
It's a fucking word. It's just a fucking word.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think
retard.
I don't think anyone in any sense thinks that Joe Rogan's a racist. All right. Probably put a pin on it there. It's 2:30. Guys, as always, hopefully you guys enjoyed the show today. Reminder, we do have what's his name again? I'm actually not that familiar with him. But
it's we have that is on Thursday. We will be joined by Mark Nixon, a reporter / journalist, and that's me that's calling him a journalist / reporter. I don't know
Yeah.
how he likes to be described. I looked at his social, and he doesn't really say outside of.
It's just all
He
around cool
reports
guy.
a lot. It's just he has a massive platform. Like, he's big on social media, and
Yep.
he has a lot of followers. I've shared his stuff all the time. I've brought his videos on this show many fucking times. He just started following me. I reached out. He shared one of my videos. He started following me. He commented on the video. I sent him an email. I sent him a text. We started talking. Super fucking cool dude. So.
And what we're going to talk about is the G7 summit that just happened. We're going to do a deep dive into that. So it'll be kind of a cool conversation. Guys, remember to tune in for that. Epiphany Jane just commented with that heart, but I just wanted to single you because normally when we see a first commentator, and I believe this is the first time we saw you today, I just like to give an official welcome. Thank you for tuning in and commenting, and hopefully stick around. Guys, if you are new to the show and you just tuned in today, please remember to subscribe to the channel. And if you really want to support the show, if you think that this is a community and a show worth supporting, you can become a member through the YouTube channel as well. That will give you access to the Discord server. And of course, you get to support independent media like this show. You could have been anywhere in the world today, and you chose to be here with us, and we will always appreciate that. Hopefully, you guys liked the interview with John Carpay. I thought it went really, really well. Make sure to... I'm going to strain myself by patting myself on the back too much. But yeah, I'm going to go take a few victory laps here. But and if you do like that, then you definitely want to subscribe and stick around because we're hopefully to have John specifically on again. But that's the kind of high quality guests that we're going to try to get more and more of. We think it really brings a lot to the show. And yeah, so make sure you come back for that. We do go live every single day, Monday to Friday at 12 Eastern, and you'll go to about 2.5 hours, but give or take. Sometimes we go a little more. We can get a bit wordy. Other than that, guys, we will catch you tomorrow. Be safe, have fun, and we'll see you tomorrow at noon Eastern time.